All right, it's 11 o'clock, so let's kick off. My name is Kelley Wacher, and I welcome you here today to the 6 steps to discovering your values. All right, like Willy Wonka, so much to do, so little time to do it in. Welcome to the 6 steps to discovering your values. The other thing I wanted to just check with you before we start is to make sure that you have downloaded the PDF document for today so that you can join along with us in the exercise of discovering your values. Now, I want to say at this point that I'm taking you through an exercise in 25 odd minutes or 30 minutes, and then we'll have some questions afterwards. But please don't feel like you've got to rush through it, because it's really important that you take some time with this as well. So I'm showing you how to do it, and then you can do it with me, or you can do it when time permits for you. Okay. So before we get started, why am I here with you? Okay, so as I said, my name is Kelley Wacher from Corporate Magic. People often say to me, do you pull a rabbit out of your hat? I say, no, the magic is in you, not in me. And so this is what this is all about. It's all about you. What I'm going to just do is spend a minute telling you about me so you can understand why I'm here. So I'm very passionate about people and their behavior. I truly believe my work with other people assists them in becoming the best version of themselves. Why do I want that? So we can thrive in society. I believe that as a coach and facilitator, I'm kind of a holder of hope for people in creating that wave of hope that can come through our society. So that's why I do what I do. And I absolutely am so honored to be able to do it. I love it. Just to give myself a little bit of credibility, these are some of the clients, the wonderful clients that I have the honor of working with and have had the honor of working with in the past. At the top line there are my tools that I use, my magic tools in my toolbox. I'm a member of the NLP Association of Australia. I am super passionate about Gallup strengths, which we're going to talk about a little bit later today, and conversational intelligence, extended disc behavioral profiling, and NLP. So I'm an accredited coach for ICF as well. All right. So I just wanted to share a little bit of my story with you. And as you would all know, in COVID-19 has been an interesting time. And on the left-hand side here, this is the classroom that I created in doing a new training for my child when we did my 6-year-old and his little next door neighbor. And we did homeschooling, which was a lot of fun. Then we have, this is really just to show the diversity. My little boy's school asked me to speak to their coming leaders. So their upcoming leaders from 5th grade going into 6th grade, which was a lot of fun. Then on a bit more of a serious note, we took, I've got some larger groups that I've worked with, some wonderful smaller groups that I've worked with, and I've had such a variety of people to be able to work with, and I'm so excited about that. As I said, Gallup Strengths is my really my passion, and what it all speaks to this sign here behind me, which is at Gallup, which says, what would happen if we studied what is right with us, with people, rather than what is wrong with people? And I really love that. I really want to see people thrive in what they do well, rather than continue to worry about what they don't do well. Okay. Oh, Belinda might be on the call, but thank you for this beautiful photo of you. This is the Time Travel Industry Mentor Program, which I'm also a part of. And this was my opportunity to speak to them about motivation. And as we know, this is an industry, hospitality and travel, that's really suffering, and entertainment really suffering right now. So it's a wonderful opportunity for me to give back to an industry that I grew up in as well. Right. On the human side, because we are all imperfect, this is me. I love a good strawberry donut. My little 6-year-old, he's not on Facebook or on social media, so you just get to see the back of him. He's a Swans fan. My acting, I love to, all the world is a stage, as they say. And at the bottom 2 pictures, one is me as the director of sales at a hotel group, dressed up as Sharon Sazlecki from Kath and Kim. and the other is me acting in at Darlinghurst Theatre. So that was a bit of fun, but it also, it's a way of putting yourself out there. On the top left there is my dog Noodle, who is my great sales manager at the moment, as you can see, with my business card in her mouth. And then down below is just, life is serious, but it's time. There's a lot of time to have fun. Okay, enough about me. Let's get to you. So at the end of this webinar, I'm going to have a particularly special offer for you, which, it's like the steak knives. So stay on for the webinar and hear what it is. Okay, core values. So what are our values? I mean, values are at the heart of everything we do. They are our moral fiber. They are almost like a compass to how we live our lives. It's our essence of what is right and what is wrong and how we want to be and behave in a particular way. And I've said this before, that, we really are only in control of three things in our lives, and that is what we say, what we do, and how we behave. And so our values really encompass that with our belief systems as well. So what are your values? Now, what we have to remember here is values are very context specific. So your values for work might be quite different to your values at your family values, or your values around money or relationships or things like that. Today, we're really going to talk a little bit mostly about work values, because I think it's one of the greatest tools that we have to build cultures in our organizations. Now, just a very quick story here. When I worked at Thomas Cook, I worked there for a very long time. And one of the things that I recognize that organizations do is they really espouse their values, and they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And so when I was at Thomas Cook, one of the things that I loved about it was they put the values somewhere where you could see them. Okay, so I know we have people who have values and they're stuck in the entranceway of organizations, but at Thomas Cook, they were on the back of the toilet door. And people say, "Oh my goodness, you can't possibly put your values on the back of the toilet door. They're so important and special. Why would you put them there?" And really, it makes sense. It's the only time that people have a moment to themselves, and all you get to do is read the back of the door. So and I still remember the vision of that organization to this day because of that. And I often walk into organizations, and I always look up the values of an organization before I go in there to make sure they're congruent. And I say to people, "What are your values?" And the number of people that are kind of like, "Oh, I don't know." And they're stuck up on the walls, but they still don't know. So this is really about, it's so important to understand what the values are that you're working with, or your values, and how they are congruent with the work that you do. Because if they conflict, you will conflict. Okay. Your values, where do they come from? They come from your beliefs. So when we talk about values, it's your belief system around what is important and how you want to live your life. So, they're your evaluation filter. Your belief system is what you hold true to yourself. Now, one of the things that this is a quote that I love. It's that your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions, and your actions become your habits. Now, your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. Now, I love that one because it shows you what I said before: thoughts, words, actions. These are the only things that we are in control of. That then creates your habits. That's the way you live your life, and that becomes your future, your destiny of what you're doing. So we really have to look at what are we doing and how are we living our values on a daily basis. Pardon me. And Nay Nin said, "We don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are." And why I'm telling you that is because sometimes we don't question any of the beliefs or values we have. They're set in stone. They are given and learned by our parental patterning, that we get them from our environment around us, so our friends, our family, clergy, teachers, mentors that we have around us. So it's really important that sometimes we need to question them. We need to question them because if we take a really truly dogmatic approach to them, then we end up being stuck in stone, and we need to be flexible around our values and beliefs so that we can understand that they are not, that they are changeable and not just accepted as principle. Does that make sense to people? Feel free to put things in the chat box if it. So we're going to look now at the values canvas. So this is where I will ask you to take the sheet that I've given you, and what we're going to do is the first question I ask myself, or you ask yourself, is what is important to me about ... So this is going to be what is important to me about work, or what is important to me about my family, or what is important to me about my life, or what is important to me about my relationship. So you can choose the one that you're going to do. I'm going to do the one for work just as an example, just so that I can show you how the process flows. All right. So just for a moment, I want you to think or remember a time when you were totally motivated in context to your work or life or your goal. Can you remember a specific time and get that time in your mind, how you were feeling, what was happening for you, and why was this important to you? I'm just going to give you a moment just to start writing some of these words down in your brainstorm box. So remember a time where you felt you were on fire, not literally, but figuratively, and you were motivated, things were going really well for you. What was happening for you? And when you run out of things to say, or when you think you've run out of things, you've hit a boundary of your thinking. So think again and think, what else? What else? What else? All right. So what we're going to do now is I'll show you, this would probably look something like this. So you can see here, I've just put a whole lot of words down there. And now what I want to do is, like a good sauce, we need to reduce it a little bit to create our sauce of life. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look for some similarities or sameness in them to try and reduce them down a little bit. So what I want you to go through, and I'll just show you what I've done, is I look at these and I go, okay, so, all right, learning and knowledge, these are quite similar to me. And this is just my perception, remember. So this is based on your perception, okay? Fun and sense of humor, these are very similar to me. Variety and flexibility, again. So go through yours and see connection and engagement I have here. So go through yours and see if you can work it down to 10 and then put those in the top 10 list there below. They don't have to be in any particular order yet. You're just stripping them back a little bit to create our essence. So it looks like people are getting through this fairly quickly. Well done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to boil it down even a little bit further. Well, those 10 are all very important. Let me say that from the outset. And this is obviously how we want to live our lives. But we want to be able to be very clear on what our values are. So when someone says to you, what are your values? And, you know, often I'm even hard up myself to say, oh, fun, empowerment, variety, determination, results, contribution, flexibility, engagement, connection, and learning. I mean, it's very difficult to remember. So what we do is we even boil it down a little bit further in our essence, and we create our top 5. Now, some people go even further down to a top 3. Now, I know my top 5. And I know them well. And I know my top 1 is determination. Okay. So what I want you to do, I want you to look at these and we start to ask ourselves, if in any one day you could experience just one of these, just one of yours on the list, which would it be? And then when you've got that one, you put a little number 1 around it. And then we ask ourselves again, if in any one day you could experience that plus 1 more, what would that second one be? Okay. Again, and you go through each one. If I could experience that and just 1 more, what would it be? And we start to prioritize these top 10. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And it might even be saying to yourself, all right, so if I look at this here and I say, so fun or empowerment, which is more important to me? You know what, it's very important to me. I've lived my life and my career on a sense of humor. So fun is very important to me. Empowerment is important, but I think I have a lot of fun. So then I look at variety and empowerment. Well, I like variety. Yeah. Determination. I said to you before, it's my number one. Determination, results. Well, I like to give results. Results and contribution. Well, I want to contribute. It's one of the 6 core needs of a human being. Flexibility. Well, is my flexibility the same as variety? Variety is different. Flexibility is being able to change direction. So I would say flexibility. Engagement and connection. Well, I say, well, if I'm engaging people, I am connected to those people. So I choose connection. Yeah. So as you go through yours, they're the types of questions that you're asking yourself. Give that a go. Don't get too much analysis paralysis around it. As I said, you know, you can take more time in the exercise if you want to later on, but just for now, just try and really come from your unconscious mind thinking, what comes to me? When you've done that, just type me a little note, because it's the only connection I get with you today. So I can see that you're moving through this exercise. So what I'd like to do is now take you to the next part, which is where we look at our top 5 in order of importance. So you've listed your top 10, yeah? Now you've listed them all down, so you should have there written next to yours the first 5. So when you realize that your first 5 is, and I said to you before, mine are determination, I know, is my number 1. Fun is my number 2. Engagement, learning and contribution, 3, 4, 5. Now, how do I know that I am actually living this out there in the world? Okay, outside of people that know me, that might know that we've had a bit of fun together, or know that I am determined, particularly through this period that we're going through at the moment. I know, you know, having spent 20 odd years in the travel industry, that determination is out there in that sector, and my best wishes to everybody in that sector. That sense of wanting to contribute. So how do I know that I'm doing that? So the next thing that I want us to do is, now that you have got your first 5 there, is prioritize your top 5. Okay, so how does it make sense to you? And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about here. When I look at my top 5, to put them in an order that makes sense, it sounds like this. Determination is my driver. Okay, determination is what drives me, it motivates me, sometimes it's back to the wall, sometimes it's moving towards something that I love, but I am determined. Fun and sense of humor comes into it next for me, because that is my armor, if you like. Then when I'm determined and I'm having fun, I am building the engagement with people that I work with, and I am learning and they are learning. And when I'm learning and they're learning, I feel a sense of contribution. Does that make sense? So if we look at it in a logical order where it makes sense to you, rehash them on your top 5 like that. It's almost like saying, to have one, I need the other. When we're able to do this, it just makes it so much easier for us to remember why we're committed to that, what our purpose is. And this really does, because it drives your beliefs, it really speaks to your purpose. Okay, and this is what, you know, it's all about. It's about, we have our values that drive our beliefs, we have our beliefs that drive our destiny. You know, so as we go through, what I want to show you now is what is called a values utilization statement. All right, so this is when somebody asks you what your values are, or when you're trying to remember your values, if you put them in a utilization statement, then you can use them. That's why it's called a utilization statement. All right, so I'm going to give you an example. This is my utilization statement. Okay, so when people say to me, what do you do? Or when they ask me, I told you my why earlier, but this is where my values come into play. And this is what I want you to try and do, is create a utilization statement based on your values that speaks to what you actually do, the actions that you take. So in my example here, I am completely determined to deliver the best results through my coaching and facilitation programs. I am flexible to my clients' needs and ensure a learning environment that is engaging and fun, as this is the best physical state to learn in. Okay. Now, it didn't take me a long time to put this together because it flowed very naturally for me, because these are my core values. So what I want you to try and do is try and come up with a statement that utilizes your values, that creates action to what you're doing. Because I'm all into the why, but I want to know the how as well, and the action that we're going to do. It's a big ask to say, give this a go now, because it does take a little bit of thought. If anybody wants to give it a go now, I'm happy for you to try. I'm happy for you to, if you want to share it, I'm happy for you to share it in the chat box. If you want to think about it later, then that's fine as well. And I get that you all come from different areas. So what you value and what I value, the way you're going to write them is going to be a little bit different. Okay. I'm going to move on because I want you to have an opportunity to have any questions answered at the end. So basically, this is it. This is the 6 steps. First, to understand what is a value and what is important to you by asking yourself that question. What is important to me about ... insert relationship, career, life, money, wealth, whatever here. Brainstorm words that resonate with you and really try to think of a time or a moment where that was happening. Feel what you feel, hear what you heard, see what you saw, and then ask yourself, why was that important to me? What was I feeling at that time? Review the similarities, select your top 10. Review and select your top 5, and then use a values utilization statement. And then what I recommend is don't just leave it on the piece of paper I've given you. This is, I don't know if you, I'm going to just try and show you this for a minute. This is mine. There we go. This is mine. So I have it stuck up on my wall. Yeah, and I have it stuck up on my wall so that when people say to me, you know, why do you do what you do? Or when people say to me, what are your values? Or when I think about why am I doing what I'm doing, I just look at that and I say, do you know what? That's it. And particularly as we've been going through COVID-19, and I look at that first line, I'm completely determined. And, you know, as somebody who does this face to face, I lost all of my business, like 100% of my business, gone. And, you know, but my determination says, recreate yourself, you know, do this online. And, you know, I've never done this before, this webinar. And for someone who's very connected and engaged, it's very difficult to do it with nobody sort of coming back to you. So I really appreciate the people who have been putting messages in the chat box for me. Okay. All right. Now, what I want to do, I just want to share something before we go, and that is to say, the reason I want you to understand your values is that if we understand our values, we get closer to understanding ourselves, our purpose. If we're able to live that, we are able to inspire and influence not only ourselves, but the cultures that we work in. If you work in a culture that espouses values and you're not seeing them, then part of your role, if your values are congruent with that culture, is to say that, is to pull that up, is to make sure that people are living and breathing and you are inspiring and influencing people in the way that the culture of the organization is set. It's increase your self-worth. When you're very clear on your values, you become very clear on what you will and won't tolerate. You know, you become very clear on what is important and then what can sort of go through to the keeper. I know recently with the COVID, they were talking about putting people in A and B teams, and someone was like, how come I'm in the B team? How come I'm not in the A team? And it's like, oh my gosh, there's just A and B teams. It's not about who's worse or better. It's these little things that say, well, how important is it? You know, increase your confidence. Be that person, stand strong in your values and in your beliefs of who you are, provided that they are resourceful and working for you, and define and discover your passion and purpose. One of the things, speaking of passion and purpose, that I am super passionate about is for people to be able to discover their strengths and bring them to life. And this goes back to when we were saying, wouldn't it be amazing if we could look at what we do well and do more of that, rather than look at what we don't do well, which is traditionally what happens in the performance management process and in when we ask for feedback from people. And what I want to do is just take a couple of minutes at the end to tell you what is this Clifton Strengths all about. Now, some of you have done it with me before, and I thank you. And I just want to give the rest of you some information. So on the technical side, it's based on 3 decades of research into a variety of functions and cultures over 50 countries, but it is a study of excellence. It's not the study of gaps or what we do well or don't do well. It is a study of excellence. And so what's happened is that Clifton, the Clifton Strengths profile measures the presence of talents in 34 areas. And how they define a talent is as a reoccurring pattern of thought and feeling and behavior that can be productively applied. And then what happens is if you productively apply that talent over and over and over again, then it becomes a strength. You know? And then when you have a strength in play, you often succeed with that. They talk about near perfect performance. But essentially, I think it's a starting point for self-discovery and a celebration of your uniqueness and your talents and what you do well. Now, let's think, how many times has someone said, I appreciate you for this, or I'm grateful for this, or this is the most amazing thing about you. And that's what I love about this strengths. It really helps us understand who we are, what we do well, and to celebrate that uniqueness. And when we talk about uniqueness, you are 1 in 33 million. The chances of somebody having the same talents as you is 1 in the same order is 1 in 33 million. The same talents in a different order is about 1 in 335,000. So we really are quite unique as human beings. It's a tool for interpersonal discovery and a real pathway for developing your strengths and creating, turning your talents into strengths. And something, as I said, I'm very passionate about. But what's in it for you? So when we look at the results that come through, and I'm one of these people that, you do a profile and you get the results after asking 50 questions, and how can that person possibly know who I am? And so I have a whole process that I go through that shows how your behaviors and your values from the ages of 0 right through to now have developed the strengths of who you are. So that is to provide proof behind the results that you get from your strengths profile. They are an absolute guide to what you do best. It provides insight into your top 5 natural talents. So these are your instinctive ways of being, and they highlight your unique contribution. It informs and directs your passion and purpose. So I know when I did mine, it was like, oh my gosh, I know why I do what I do now, and it's very, very clear to me. And there's nothing like that when you have that little black hole of uncertainty and not understanding your purpose or what you're doing, and it informs and directs that. The other thing I like about it is, it is 34. The top 5 are those innate natural talents that you probably don't even realize that you have because they're so natural to you. The next 10 we look at, they inform your behavior and they're very easily accessible. But we look at the bottom 5, we don't spend a lot of time there, but it's just to recognize that they're there and how do we manage those lesser talents or those weaknesses that we have. So for example, I have analytical in my bottom 5, and anyone that knows me knows I am no mathematician. Okay, and so what I do is I manage that by having an accountant to do all my accounting type work. Because keep me with the people phase. And so that's what we do. We recognize it. We say, 1, how can I connect with somebody else who has a talent that I don't have instead of conflicting with them? And how can I empower someone else to do that because it's really just not in my wheelhouse? And if we were able to do that, then obviously we could spend more time doing the things that we do well. So discover how you can make a difference using what makes you exceptional. Okay, so I always work on the 80-20 rule. I love the Pareto principle. I say to my little boy, we work on the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time you can be good, 20% of the time you can be naughty. But I don't want all 20%. Okay, so in strengths as well, I mean, we can do what we love, but reality of life tells us that 20% of the time we're going to have to do things that don't really float our boat. But if we can do the rest 80% of the time, what a wonderful life it would be. There's a song in everything as well. All right. So moving right along, how does it help you? Break through with confidence and personal awareness. Provide specific actions to get results. So when you go through the process and the program, there are specific actions that help you to get results. Understand self. But the other thing I love about this is when you understand yourself and you understand the concept of the full 34, you can also understand other people. Yeah, for better engagement, improved effectiveness with the people that you work with. Yep. When we look at behavioral programming, we look at people who are influencers and dominance versus people who are steadiness and compliant. And often those polar opposites conflict when really they could be working together really well if they could just understand each other's strengths and the purpose of those strengths. So it's really about breaking down limiting beliefs of your own and others so that we can all thrive. I feel like I'm on a soapbox. I just love this stuff. Essentially, it is, change your thinking and embrace your talents. And the results you will get is you will change the impact you have on people and you will see the results that you want to see. Okay. So the way forward, and I'm sorry I haven't seen any of the chat yet, but I'm going to come to that at the end if you don't mind. The way forward, understand your strengths, themes, recognize them in your life, clarify them in your roles and your expectations. Make sure your expectations are linked to your strengths so you have the opportunity to achieve. You know? The future awaits you. See your talents in action, connect with your goals and aspirations, see the alignment between your talents and your results. Okay. And you know what? Don't just take my word for it, really. I mean, here I am blabbing on about what I'm passionate about, and I am passionate about it, but I want to just show you the impact of others who have made the decision to focus on what we do well instead of weakness fixing. Okay. I said before, Penny Spencer is the director of Spencer Group of Companies, also the owner or the CEO of the Travel Industry Mentor Experience. And every mentee I have worked with, I have used the strengths profile to help them grow and to learn. Fran, I worked with in hotels, and he took on his own coaching journey, having done it and realizing where his passion and purpose lay. And now he's the program manager at ICMS. And this all came out in his strengths profile as well. Fun Lab is one of my clients who have also been struggling of late, being in the entertainment industry, but I have been honored to have the opportunity to work with their leadership teams and be able to use strengths in that as well, particularly now, and help them use their strengths to get through this difficult time that they're going through. Belinda, I know you're on the call, so thank you for this. Belinda, I tried to poach Belinda when she was at Hilton, and she wouldn't come. So, but I was fortunate years later to be able to be her mentor on the Time program, and she's amazing and is doing some amazing things. So, thank you very much. Gail, all the way over the ditch into New Zealand. Gail was just very curious about strengths. And when I went through the strengths profile with her, she really felt a deeper understanding of the people that she's around. And she deals in a lot of conflict. So she found it very useful for her in what she was doing. This last one, Miss from AHG. Now, this is where I learned that you can take these skills into any area. Okay, you can take these, they go across humanity rather than across job roles. So for someone who always deals in hospitality and retail, entertainment and service based customers, this was my first entree into dealing with finance and insurance people, and which is really interesting. And we had about 100 people there go through the strengths process with me, and it was just astounding, the things that they got out of it, and the way that they used it to change the way that they were leading in their organization. And I really, the learning for me was, it doesn't matter what you do or who you are or where you're from. Strengths are for everybody. Yeah, your talents are yours. So that was great, a great learning for me as well. So here we are at the steak knives. So your special webinar offer, okay? So full 34 strengths profile, a strengths summary page, a desktop lanyard so you can stick it up there so you can watch it. It'll be right there next to your values utilization statement that you're going to write. A 2-hour discovery session with someone who is just as passionate about you as you are, and that's me. You know, and an opportunity to really delve into what you do and what you do well. So this is what it looks like. You get your full Clifton Strengths profile with actions in there. I give you a summary page, so you're able to have a snapshot of what you do well. Also understanding the barriers and balconies of those things. So with everything, we're human, nothing is perfect. There's light and dark, night and day, sun and moon, all those things. Same with talents. So sometimes when we use them really well, they become strengths. If we overuse them, they can become weaknesses. Yeah. I give you a contribution, so what you contribute and what you need. And in a time where people are looking for work and looking to try and explain themselves in an interview process, this is fantastic, because it really tells you, what do I bring? What do I bring to the organization? What do I bring to my relationships, and what I need? Yeah, what do I need to get from that? So it's great for being able to ask questions about what you need as well. All right, all of that, $12.99, but not for you. For you, for today, it's $5.49. So I hope that in this time where people are struggling a little bit, that it's an offer that you may be able to take up. I really would be delighted to be able to help anybody who wants to know more about this. And if you're interested, here is the link to get it done. And my very good friend Sandra's just popped that into the chat box for me. Thank you, Sandra. And the only thing I have to say from here is thank you. Really, I mean, you know, this has been my first webinar. I really appreciate all of you that have come on board. If people have questions, I would love to answer them. Okay, thank you, Katrina. I think this has been the best, simplest way to identify values I've seen to date. Thank you very much. So if anybody honestly has any questions about this, or if you're struggling at all with your utilization statement, please feel free, just drop me a line. Sandra's just put my email address in there as well. I'd love to hear from you. If you get your utilization statement done, please forward it to me. I'd love to see it. It's an amazing thing to be able to put together. If there are no questions, the only thing left to say is, again, thank you so much for being part of my very first webinar. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share this, what I'm passionate about, with you. And remember, as you leave here, the magic is in you. Thank you so much.